year 2020. Welcome to Lemoore City Council meeting. Please silence all electronic devices of courtesy to those in attendance. Thank you. Can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to have the Vice Mayor, Mr. Kluwer, do the prayer.
Tonight we'll do the Serenity Prayer. Let us pray. God grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Be seated. Marissa, roll call.
Councilmember Lyons,
Present.
Councilmember Scaldi,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Plord,
Present.
Mayor Neal.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, going down to closed session report.
Nothing to report, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Okay, agenda approval, additions, and or deletions. Are there any? I see there's none. Going on to public comment. This time will be reserved of the audience to speak on something that is not on the agendas. State your name, last name, the city you live in. I'll give you 3 minutes. Going once, going twice? So, all right, moving on. Going on to ceremony and presentation, section 1. Are there any ceremony and presentations?
None.
None. Okay, 2-1, Department and City Manager report.
So first tonight up is Chief Kendall.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I was just going to provide you with an update in regards to the protests that we've seen here and around Lemoore. Yesterday, we had approximately 250, 300 gatherers in downtown. They started in downtown, made essentially one march loop around town to the police department, a couple other different locations. Lasted for approximately 3 hours during the course of the event. People truly exercised their constitutional rights and protested peacefully. It did not dictate a response from the police department. We had the resources, we had the manpower if it was going to potentially turn into a sustained event, but I'm happy to report that it did not. Today we had a rather much smaller crowd than what we did yesterday. It was approximately 30 individuals, made a much shorter loop around the city, stopping at the police department and ending at Fountain Plaza Park, which they mingled around there for 10, 15 minutes and then dispersed. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for department reports.
Okay, all right, moving on down to consent calendar. Section 3, items considered routine on the nature of the place of the consent calendar. They will be considered to vote upon on one vote as an item unless the council member or members of the public request individual consideration. Okay, going on to 3-1, approval minutes regular meeting, May 5th, 2020. 3-2, approval minute special meeting, May 14, 2020. 3-3, approval modification loan agreement for property acquisition, 1600 Enterprise Drive. 3-4, approval denial of claim for Omar DeRoche, the Green Mouse Smoke Shop. 3-5, approval resolution 2020/17, consideration of the November 3, 2020 municipal election with Kings County.
Mayor, if I could note that item 3-3 is your successor agency item.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the public want to expound on any of this? See, there's none. Swing it back to the council. Anybody want to pull any of these items? Can I get a motion?
I move the consent calendar.
Got a motion by Mr. Pleward.
Second.
Got a second, Mr. Lyons. Mr. Pleward?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
Mr. Scody?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Consent calendar is passed. Moving on down to public hearing, 4-1. Introduction and first reading ordinance 2020/05 approving zone map amendment number 2020/02, ordinance 2020/06 approving planning unit development number 2020/01, resolution 2020/19 approving the mitigate negative declarations of the general plan amendment number 2020/02, a resolution 2020/20 approving tentative subdivision map 848 and major site plan review number 2020/01. Brent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. Steve Brandt, city planner. This project is being brought to you at the request of Lennar Homes. This is a request for approvals, for 5 separate approvals that together would approve a 362 lot, single family residential subdivision. The site is located at the southeast corner of Bush Street and College Avenue, just east of West Hills College. There's a number of approvals that you'll need to make tonight in order to approve the entire package. The first 2 involve a general plan amendment and a zoning map amendment. You can see on the screen the existing general plan land use designations for the site on the left, and then the proposed designations on the right. So it's not a major change, but it is a change to accommodate the proposal that they have. One of the things that we have to deal with now, thanks to the state legislature and the governor who passed a law this past January, is that cities, in a response to the housing crisis in California, cities are no longer allowed to downzone property. And downzoning is a slang term that planners use for reducing the planned density of a site. So what we had planned for this site, we can no longer approve a project that would have less units than what we planned for. So in order to accommodate that, we worked with the developer, made sure that their site or what they wanted to do does not do that. And with this general plan amendment and zone change and the information in your packet, we're able to show that there is no downzoning involved. What that means is there are smaller lots than what a lot of neighborhoods are planned for in Lemoore. That's kind of the reality we're in now because of the actions by the state on making sure we have enough density for housing. Another component of the project is a planned unit development permit. This involves making changes to the standard setbacks for the houses. So you can see on the left column is what the standard city setbacks would be for low density residential development, and then what the proposed setbacks would be on the right. We've spent a lot of time analyzing this and believe this is something that can work. Again, it's kind of the trend of where we're going for housing, and staff's recommended approval of this. This planned unit development would be codified similar to other planned unit developments that we have around the city. The tentative subdivision map is the part of the project that actually divides the property so that it can be sold as separate lots. The plan is to develop the site in 3 phases. The first phase would have 152 homes, second phase 107 homes, and third phase 103 homes. All indications are that the developer would move immediately from one phase to the other based on sales activity. You can see that which portions of the exterior roads would get built with each phase in this picture as well. Another component of the project is the major site plan review. And one of the things in the zoning ordinance that we require is a review of the master home plans. There are some standards that the ordinance has in place. The major site plan review is the mechanism to approve these home plans. You can see that there's a total of 9 different home plans that will be at the site. 5 of them fit on what are minimum 50 by 100 acre lot, 100 foot lots. Each of those would have 2 elevation plans available. And then for the 50 by 80 foot lots, there would be 4 home plans with 3 elevations available. Something else that we considered, given that this is on the west side, back in 2011, the city participated in a joint land use study that was sponsored by the Naval Air Station Lemoore. The county was involved in this. I think Fresno County was also involved in it. And what that document did was it spelled out additional considerations and requirements for land uses around the Naval Air Station. This site, you can see on the map, is in the green area, the light green area, which is overlay area 3. And in the table, you can see it, I think that was figure 5.1, if I can see it from here. It says that there are no land use restrictions for this area. As you can see, as you move farther west toward the Naval Air Station into the blue area, there would be some restrictions. But this site, according to this plan, does not have restrictions. The city, however, does have some additional restrictions about protection from noise, nuisance noise. So some of the conditions in our recommendation are to require easements be put in place so that the property owners and all future property owners, as the homes get sold, is formally made aware of their location next to the Naval Air Station. So the Planning Commission held a public hearing and recommended approval of the project with the conditions in your staff report. After the staff report that you have in front of you was prepared, the developer and the staff met to discuss a few of the conditions. And the result of that meeting was that we have modified a few of the conditions, and those are on your screen. These are different from what's in your staff report. So the first one is there's a condition about fencing along the backside of the phase 2 lots adjacent to the planned trail. And the revised condition would say that there be a block wall instead of a wrought iron fence along that area. The second change would be to remove the condition requiring concrete walkways along the side yards. And then the third change would be that has to do with the timing of the park, that the park would not have to be in place and ready for use until the 100th home was built. And I think the original condition said the 5th home. So this gives the developer a little bit more time to get that park up and running in the process. So these were following discussions with the developer, and we feel comfortable recommending these changes and would recommend that when you make your motion to include these changes in your motion. So our recommendation would be to hold a public hearing, listen to testimony, and then approve the components of the project. We ask that they be approved in the following order that's on the screen there. This is for some legal requirements. They need to be approved in a certain order to be valid. And then the two ordinances, which are listed as B and C, need 2 readings. So those will be brought to you, back to you at a future meeting for its second reading. And when that occurs, then the project would be finally approved. So I know this is a really big project and I didn't cover a lot of the details of the project. So if there's anything you have any questions about, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So the first phase, 152 houses, right? Or lots, if you will.
Yeah.
So let's say someone wanted one of the lots in the second phase. Would they have to wait for the second phase to start? Like, what's the timeline on that?
Yeah, so the way the development works is they do the land development first, streets, sewers, water lines.
Okay.
And so they would build only the first phase lots first and then build those houses. And then they move to phase 2.
And your motion change is that we're talking about, so the pad of cement behind the fence, that's.
We'd originally recommended that there be to require, because all the homes have a man door on the side
Of the garage,
where to get into the garage.
behind the fence.
Behind the fence. And so we had recommended putting in a walkway.
And a pad for the
and a
garbage
pad
cans.
for trash, for refuse cans. After talking with the developer some more, and the difficulties of actually doing that at the initial development stage, we're recommending that condition be removed.
Okay.
Is there a timeline as far as once they're done with phase 1? Are they going to automatically start with phase 2, or?
I would suggest you ask the developer that question, because they'd be better to know about their timing.
Yes, sir.
Another thing is, if I may, what was the downtime for that at one time, the particular time? How long you guys been working on that?
On this project,
Mhm.
they formally applied in March, but informally, we've been talking for at least a year, maybe longer.
Okay. Now, this is by West Hills, right?
Yes.
When you go down, it's right by the Leprino?
It would be past Leprino.
Pat-
It'd be directly across the street from West Hills College.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If they complain, you think Leprino, or you think the residents at one time, do they know about the smell, or, Okay.
The same easement that informs the future owners of the Naval Air Station also has a clause about the fact that they're in an agricultural area and that there's industrial areas also, and that there could be potential for smell.
Okay, so you guys got it taken care of, because I remember one time they was talking about the dirt being contaminated over some issues that they had to bring some new dirt in or something.
That, I think, is a different site.
That was a different site. Okay. Last thing, how big is that park going to be?
It's showing 1.06 acres. Which is not a huge park, but it's good size for a neighborhood park.
Last question is the fly zone.
Mhm.
Is everything copacetic? Were you in the military with the flight zone? And
I'm not going to speak for the military, so I don't know what they're actually going to say.
Okay.
We're following the plans that were agreed upon in the past.
I'm not trying to ruffle no feathers. I was
Yeah.
just asking the question. Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I have one. I was back in 2011, I was on the land use. And back then, we were talking about the F-35 noise levels, 9 years ago.
Mhm.
So we don't really know what the noise levels are now in actuality. We just had curves and dBs and things like that. So the Navy was involved in heavily in that. The county was involved, the city was involved, we had citizens. And I think we did a pretty good job trying to protect encroachment on the Naval Air Station. And with the college already in place and the university high school already there, I think the next step in land use would be try to get some building going on. So here we are tonight. And so I'm sure that the Navy may have an input in our public hearing on that matter. So I just wanted to identify myself. I was part of that 2011 thing. I happened to be the mayor pro tem at that time also. And here I am again. That's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and open it to the public.
Open the public hearing.
I'm open to the public. Expound on this item. Absolutely.
Be willing to talk to you about that one. Good evening, Mayor Neal, Lemoore City Council. I'm Captain Doug Peterson, the commanding officer of Naval Air Station Lemoore, located at my headquarters at 700 Windsor Avenue on the Naval Air Station. On May 11th, you unanimously passed resolution number 2020-05, approving general plan amendment 2020-02, zoning map amendment 2020-02, plan unit development number 2020-01, and tentative subdivision map track 848. It also approved a major site plan review number 2020-01 to divide 54.1 acres into 362 single-family lots, which we're talking about today, as well as the park. Approval for new single-family home master plans located south of Bush Street and east of College Avenue in the city of Lemoore. The Naval Air Station is concerned that the resolution would lead to encroachment to mission, incompatible development, and subject individuals to high aircraft noise. And we are concerned also that it will expose aircrew and future Lemoore residents to unnecessary health and safety risks. We recognize that the city and the Naval Air Station have worked together and respect the complexity of this problem. We look forward as strong and enduring teammates to continuing to work together. We value that relationship, which is strategic to the Navy, very highly. But I would like to submit a couple of comments. In addition to the previous comments submitted in my letter of May 20th, for the following concerns. Encroachment to mission is defined as external influences threatening or constraining military activities required for mission activities of a military installation. Naval Air Station Lemoore was commissioned in 1961 when conducting flight operations out of Naval Air Station Alameda was no longer feasible. The sea level elevation of Lemoore, remoteness, and perfect flying weather have made this land and Naval Air Station Lemoore the ideal location to construct Navy's largest and newest West Coast master jet base. Allowing for residential construction underneath a pre-existing flight corridor will encroach on that mission. Incompatible development. It's defined as land use activity and civilian development activity that adversely affects the utility or training and readiness missions of a military installation. Allowing for residential development underneath the ground control approach patterns, which are labeled 2RG1 and 4LG1, is incompatible with Naval Air Station Lemoore's mission and will affect future mission readiness. Aircraft noise, meat of the matter. Locally based FA-18 Super Hornets, F-35 Charlie Joint Strike Fighters, and various other visiting aircraft use the GC-8 box mid-downwind pattern. Once in the pattern, those aircraft will fly at approximately 1,800 feet mean sea level elevation, or about 1,500 feet above the ground, at between 250 and 320 knots. Future residents will be exposed to sound exposure levels, or SELs, ranging from 89 to 101 decibels, so about 90 decibels average. As a proud member of Naval Air Station Lemoore's housing, and a bit closer to the flight pattern, I can say that that is pretty loud. Exposure to unnecessary health and safety risks. The ground control approach corridors that I've just labeled were established in 1961 and are located above the proposed 362 single-family home subdivision that we're talking about today. The pattern is used to vector aircraft into the airfield during inclement weather or when conducting instrument training for our aircrew. We averaged 210,000 flight operations per year, of which about 9,200 are flown using the GCA pattern. We believe residential development underneath existing flight paths will inevitably lead to risk and conflict that we wish, in partnership with the city, to avoid. I would like to recommend humbly that the City Council table its decision on taking further action on the resolution before you, and in partnership with Naval Air Station Lemoore, pursue a compatible use planning grant through the Office of Economic Adjustment, or OEA. The grant will assist the city and Naval Air Station to develop a plan that will support the city's smart growth initiatives and Naval Air Station's mission. OEA's Military Installation Sustainability Program, or MISP, is designed to provide technical and financial assistance to states and local governments. The intent of the program is to analyze and implement actions necessary to foster, protect, and enhance military installation sustainability. And there's a website for that I will provide later. In August 2011, the Naval Air Station and the City of Lemoore completed this joint land use study, which participated in, sir. MISP will assist with implementing the JLUS compatible land use recommendations. Previously, a city manager and my team had initiated discussions on pursuing the MISP grant through OEA, but with that city manager's departure, the effort had stopped. I encourage the City Council to restart the effort. But in the meanwhile, I would like to humbly ask the city if it would take a small pause and allow our experts and the city's experts to study this issue a little further and see if we can't work together towards a solution that represents all stakeholders. Again, we understand this is a complex issue and involves many stakeholders with many interests. We would just like to make sure that all of those are taken into account. Please let my staff know if they or I can be of any assistance providing additional information or decisions on this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Mayor, Council. My name is Jeff Calloway. I'm with Lennar Homes. Can't tell you how excited I am to be here tonight with this project, and also Lennar let me come out of my garage to work after all this time. So I want to really thank the staff on helping us get here tonight. When we just, like Steve said, been working on this for over a year, but it was kind of a back burner project because we had other projects that were, we wanted to get first, come up first. And then we kind of got caught sleeping, and we realized the Caltrans VMT stuff is going to kick in starting July 1st. So we're in a position where we had several meetings with staff that we didn't think we could make this date tonight. And Steve and Judy laid out a pathway, and Nathan helped us out to get here. And many times we didn't think we were going to make it. And then the Corona thing hit, and then we were for sure, we were throwing our arms at what are we going to do now? Well, we're here. We're here tonight. If this project gets delayed past July, it's not going to happen. And we'd like to really, because of the cost with the new Caltrans requirements coming in, we'd like to sit here and on Lennar's behalf, thank the staff for getting us here, and we appreciate everything you guys have done. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer if I can. And we recommend approval with the amendments that Steve brought tonight.
Is it possible that you guys can get with the military on this and try to get something going by that time?
I'm not sure what they want. I'm not sure. This is, I think everybody was noticed properly. I'm not sure why we're here tonight with the questions.
So, Mayor Neal and council members. So from staff standpoint is we have a general plan, right? That's been laid out, and that's kind of our roadmap or our operations plan for building the city. It was developed with the Navy, with the county. Staff is executing the plan. We've got a gem of a school out there. The intent was to build a community around it and livability around it. So at this point, I think we need to stay the course and finish out what we set out to build a decade or more ago. I understand the basis concerns, but this is a Navy town. I got jets over my house every day. I love the sound of those jets. They don't bother me. We have jets flying over the small neighborhood that's right up against the freeway on a daily basis. And I can tell you emphatically, since I've been the city manager and the public works, prior to that, I've not received one noise complaint from residents to myself. The only time I saw anything was that last sonic boom we had a little while back. I think there was one negative comment on social media, but overwhelmingly, it was like, yeah, let's do that every Friday. Let's do that more often because people just love that sonic boom. So, but this has been a long time coming. I mean, I don't have the background like some people in our audience do tonight, but we finally have a chance to deliver on what the Peterson family, and they dedicated land, and Frank Gornick and the vision of the college. And I don't see how delaying right now to try to go rehash the rules that are already in place are going to help us. And he is correct with the new traffic studies and VMT laws that go into effect July 1. If we don't have an tentative approval by that date, it stops everything. And that's for all development in town. We're up against these deadlines. So they've changed the rules on how we can build. So this is time critical. And they actually said working on it for a year, but I believe it was submitted March 2nd. Here we go, a few months later. This is probably the fastest turn the city's ever done on a project of this nature. So hats off to Judy and her team, Steve Brandt and the developers for sticking to this and getting it too. So my hope would be that we get this thing across the finish line and get to building on the west side. Thank you.
I understand that, City Manager, I understand that. I was just hearing this gentleman talk here in the military, and then I was hearing what he said, and then how long did we know we had this deadline in place? And it's like it puts us in a pinch point where we got to make this decision. So,
Well, we're still in the public hearing, so I'm going to reserve my question until after we get through the public hearing,
okay, go ahead.
if anybody has any more.
And okay,
Anything else? Well, we really appreciate staff's help on this, and we also like to thank our engineer and the new city engineer for helping us get here. It was a great feat. Any questions?
So what would be the timeline if it was approved? What was your timeline to get to that first phase started and through with the first phase, and would it go straight into the second phase, or would there be a delay?
We don't see a delay at this point. Of course, it's all market driven.
Certainly.
And with the Corona thing, and our intent is to start upon plan approval. And we have a couple projects, the other one here in town we want to get done, and then we'll move into the plans for this one. And so we're looking at probably the end of the year, first part of the year, right when it starts raining, we'll open the ground up.
Certainly.
It's the way we do things.
And how long till, if you start breaking ground at the beginning of next year of 21, when do you?
We probably have sticks going up about September, October-ish. And then work through it at, if the market holds, 4 to 5 a month.
Okay.
So.
I was going to say, at the military's request, if we can do before the deadline, can they come together?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do have a hearing problem. I'm trying to work it out, but I can't hear exactly what you're saying.
Okay, this gentleman in the military, he was telling us, I keep forgetting how to say your name. Captain what?
Peterson.
Captain Peterson. He was bringing up a request, a simple request. And if there's a deadline where you can't get it within that request, by all means, there's a goal. I want to see something established. We've been working on this for a while. Okay, I understand that. But as his request, can we do anything, look into more options?
I'm not sure what the options are. I'm not sure what the issue is at this point. This is the first I heard that there was even an issue. And we totally respect the military and their position, and we want to work with everybody. It's just in this situation we're kind of over the barrel here.
Yeah,
we're trying to figure out what to do. We'll listen, and I'm not sure what any of the concerns are at this point. But we'll talk. We'll sit down and talk if we need to, right away.
That's all I wanted to hear. This transparency with each other.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to make a comment about this?
Yes, I got
Sorry. Were you done? You were?
No, I they didn't want me up there anymore. So.
No, you, don't blame that on.
Hi, I'm Kristen Clark, president at West Hills College, Lemoore, and I'm here on behalf of the West Hills Community College District. And I know our Chancellor, Stuart Van Horn, has been here before to speak to you. I know our emeritus chancellor here, Dr. Frank Kornick, as well. But I have a statement to read from our current chancellor. And he says, a few months ago, I visited with you to update our continuing efforts to provide access to higher education in the city and surrounding communities. I spoke to you about our efforts to grow the college and highlighted a number of innovative services designed to shorten time to completion and lower student cost. A lot has changed since then. The COVID pandemic substantially affected our resources, but not our resolve. You may also recall our vision to grow our Lemoore College is in alignment with the master city plan for the city. The Lennar project links seamlessly with our district strategic plan, and we remain poised to deliver education using our innovative technology platforms and connect our training programs to workforce needs of our employers in the region. We've continued to seek out potential partners to mature college services, our menu of partnerships, student scholarships, and broaden our commitment to making a difference in our community. Our students have expanded work-based learning in this community, and our commitment to supporting community initiatives remains a core tenet of our vision. The Lennar project, in our view, represents an essential development opportunity. The project has the potential to be a key step with much-needed development of infrastructure west of Highway 41. This is a key moment for us, the city, and our district. As I said a few months ago, the trinity of Lemoore, NAS, Leprino Foods, and West Hills will continue to work together and coexist peacefully while jointly supporting the opportunity for increased social mobility of our citizens. This represents opportunity for all three entities and the city, and I urge you to support the project. And I also agree that being a resident of the college on a daily basis, of course not the last 3 months because I've been on a Zoom call every day, but we enjoy having the Navy as our neighbors. We love the jets flying over. It's one of my favorite things to do, to step outside. And as a matter of fact, I love them flying over my home too. So we'd like to continue to peacefully coexist, but we support this project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Could you add that document to the clerk?
I sure can.
We'll make it part of the record.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Tom Reed, 1064 Avenue. As a frequent. Anyway, having said that, something rolling around in my head that sometime in the past, there was an agreement with the Navy that development would not be made west of the street behind the college. So there's a street somewhere to the west of the college, and beyond that, there would not be any development. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is correct. The cutoff to the west is Marsh Drive,
Yeah.
where Bush Street ends.
Absolutely.
And this is correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. Frank Kornick, 656 Cambria Lane. A couple of things before I begin. How many homes was that in this development?
352.
First one's 100, phase one's 152. I believe total was 360. How many?
And it's on 51 of the 80 acres?
362.
Is that right? 50 of the 80 acres. Okay. The other thing I want to say is the noise of the jets, that dog doesn't hunt anymore. In Lemoore, everybody likes the sound of that, so I just advise the Navy that it really doesn't make any difference to us. It is the sound of freedom to us. So my remarks are more along the lines of kind of a teachable moment in terms of reviewing a little bit of the history. I certainly support this project. I'm really I want to talk a little bit about the early 90s and mid 90s, where the council, the Navy, the county, there's Leprino. We designed the plan, the current master plan that was evolving at that time. for everything west of 41. And there was a lot of concern at that time about encroachment. But I remember two commanders, I believe I had a chance to work with. One was Deke Childress. Things that they both stressed was that the Navy was getting out of the housing business. They were going to remodel what they had there, but the plan was that they wanted the sailors to have ownership in the communities, so that when they got deployed somewhere else, they had some equity to bring with them to their next deployment. They did not want to be in the housing business anymore. That was the plan as they advised us going forward. There was always concern about the flight pattern, but also those two gentlemen told me that, that's not bricks and mortar. That can be moved. That's in the sky. I mean, a lot of things have to happen, but it's a little different than moving a highway kind of a thing, if that ever had to happen. The other thing that we did in planning this, we brought along the citizens, because two bond measures were passed to support development on the west side. Number one was the college, but in that college at the time, we also had people like Leprino interested and others who said, how about the infrastructure? Because that's a major lift for developers. And the citizens of this community, in the first bond measure, we set aside a significant amount of dollars to not just bring in the infrastructure, but to oversize the infrastructure to handle the capacity for homes and for industrial. And we even put a lift station in. The taxpayers of this community did that to support development on the west side. So it's a bring to light is that we've been in this for a long time in terms of doing some smart growth about how to go on the west side, protect our partners in terms of the Navy and any industrial development on that side. But the plan was always to, along the north-south axis of 41, we wanted to have commercial development. And then from commercial development, there was apartments, and then entry-level housing, and then larger housing. One of the things that we would like to be able to have, and that's where my biggest concern is with Lennar. Lennar is the largest home builder in the United States. It's arguably about a $64 million operation. Actually, look at the stock market. It's got two levels of stock, A and a B. Okay, and we don't have their best product here. And I guess that's what I want to say to Lennar is I'd like to see your best product. I know what your best product is. I've seen it. And you guys are selling us a little short. If you want to be our partner, you got to be a partner like the Navy. You got to take the good and the bad. And you've got to allow us to grow as a smart city. If you look at some of the developments that we've allowed to come into the town, I can talk about one that's just over there by on B Street. Walt and Castano built it. It's a nice walled community. You go in there and you can get claustrophobia. It is so small. And if you're fortunate to have 3 cars, one of them's either on the grass or halfway into the middle of the street. Okay? And I don't think those are the kind of neighborhoods we want to have. And so that's why I say to Lennar, I know you guys do wonderful projects all over the United States. And I know you're on a fast timeline, but it's the kind of a thing that, the citizens of this community have over a $350 million investment in that college. The bricks and mortar assessed value of that community and the value it can bring to the community in terms of the infrastructure there is something that really needs to be understood. It's not just something you just throw up. It's there. We're going on almost 15 years. Can you imagine that for that college? And it's only halfway built. It's not always there. We build colleges for about 100 years. And so long after we're gone, we want to be able to have something there that we can all be proud of. So those are my comments. And also, I just want to update that. Yes, we are partners. We're actually managing the wetlands or the I forget what we call it now, but behind the college. Mm-hmm. No development can occur in the college. We have solidified that. That's been signed at both in Washington, D.C. and in California. We manage that. So there's no development going behind us. We're the last stop. Everything moves east there. So, we need to hang a sign out there where we're open for business and let it go. So with that, conclude my remarks and good luck with the project.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to the council.
Well, I've got a few comments. Thank you for your service, by the way. I'm sure you hear it all the time, but I think you deserve it even more today. We're in between major wars, so we need you even more now. So, like I said before, I was part of that study way back when, and things would be different tonight if nature was, or if the base was located in a different spot, but it isn't. The prevailing winds are from the north, so the F-35's taken off from the north, the F-18's taken off towards the north, so their afterburners are making noise, waking up cows in Bakersfield and places out there now. Now, if the prevailing winds were from the south, which they occasionally are, but that's usually in storm times, the afterburners would be flying directly over probably the houses that we're talking about tonight. And there would be occasionally some people upset, but I don't know what the normal wind patterns are, but predominantly they're from the north. And people returning to the base in their aircraft are usually not in afterburner. They're slowing down. They're getting ready to get into the glide path. And so the noise is reduced generally. So I'm just saying, because of the base's location and the area that we're talking about tonight, the noise would be significantly greater if the winds were from the south, which they're not. And so we have a dilemma in Lemoore. The only major piece of open ground for development is to the west of Highway 41. And everything is taken up to the east, south, and north. We may annex a property sooner or later, but right now the only open area is to the west of 41. And so that brought to mind that noise study again. 9 years ago, the Navy was concerned about encroachment, and they were probably worried about encroachment in 1961. That's why they put themselves in the middle of nowhere. And Miramar put themselves in the middle of nowhere, and the city grew up around them and eventually disappeared because of encroachment. We don't want that here. We have a green belt around the base that's going to limit anything but farming around the base. And as far as development, everything, from behind the university school towards the base is not something that we're ever going to develop on. If the Navy wanted over the last 9 years to purchase land and put that property under the military control, then that would have been something that they took care of 9 years ago. Right now, I sympathize for the base concern, but I'm also concerned about our growth. And so those are the things that I have to think about when I make a decision later. So those are my comments. I'll pass it on.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Mr. Plord said, and thank you for your service. And especially in this day and age right now, what we're going through. And I got to say, I hear what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying. But just like he said, we got to think of ourselves also. And we have that hard line on the west side of the college. And how many houses was it again? 361?
362.
I just don't see that being detrimental to my Navy brothers out there to the west. I understand that you probably would rather we didn't do it, but I also don't see it breaking any major. I like on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad would you say you don't want us to do it? Like a 2 or a 3? It's definitely not a 10, because if it was a 10, you'd have all kinds of experts in here with multiple things instead of just reading your one thing. And I'm not trying to belittle anything that you did or anything, because I respect everything that you do, sir. But I'm leaning on the side of my city right now. That's all I have to say.
City Manager Olson, I know that you said, and since your tenure as city manager and your prior position, you said you'd heard one noise complaint the entire time. And I was wondering.
It was you?
No,
Oh.
not, well, maybe, no. I was wondering, Captain Peterson, if you don't mind me asking, how many people have notified you about a complaint, or the Navy itself? Have you heard of anybody in town that complained?
No, not from the town.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I'm going to agree with Dr. Gornick towards putting in a best product. If you go to some of your subdivisions up in Clovis and things like that, 5,000 square foot lot seems awfully small to me. And like he said, you go to some other communities and those houses are unbelievably like, wow. And I know that you guys put out a great product, and it's all about that almighty dollar. I realize that, but we being in the community shouldn't have an inferior product when you guys are capable of putting up a much better product. So that's something that we need to take into consideration as well.
You anything, Mr. Kluger?
Don't have anything to add.
I'm just going to say, my city is Lemoore. My city is, well, my county is the County of Kings. And I think the military had a lot to do with that ever since the 60s, early 60s. And they had their hands in a lot. It's a lot of things. We wouldn't be in the situation we are. We'll have the great Walmarts and Costco's and big stores and all the above, the people we have here, the revenue we have here for that military. And it ain't about going against. I'm all for pushing it. If this is what we have to do, let's do it. And Councilman Lyons made a good, valid point. He said, it's not a 1, it's not a 2, it's not a 3. If it's a 10, yeah, we have an issue. But if we can just work together, that's all I want to see right now, especially in these times and needs. Work together and hear each other out and just go for it. I'm sure everything will work together for good, we just got to work together. That's all I was saying. All right, thank you.
For the city manager, were those changes that you negotiated today, were those incorporated into the different resolutions and ordinances, or are they going to be before they're signed?
I can answer that. The changes that I showed in the PowerPoint, you would need to specifically add to the resolution. That's why the last recommendation says, and with the modifications to the conditions. I would think that if you said, if you're in agreement with the 3 modifications, you could just say the 3 modifications presented
As modified?
tonight by staff, yeah. When you make the motion on that last resolution.
Right. So before council tonight are 4 separate motions, and staff is asking that you take each motion in the order as it appears on your screen right now. And what Mr. Brand is talking about is that last motion D. He already has the wording in there addressing those modifications.
Okay. Now, if there's no more comment, I have a motion.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Lyons. By Mr. Kluwer.
Move resolution 2020-19 approving the mitigated negative declaration and general Plan Amendment Number 2020-02.
Second.
Before I get this going, do you guys have to expound on any other further discussion on this item? Okay, I got a motion.
Any discussion on the motion?
So are we going to go ahead and, we got a motion by Mr. Plewart and a second by Mr. Lyons. Mr. Plewart?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
Mr. Scoldy?
Yes.
And I vote aye. Motion carries.
Move ordinance 2020-05, approving zone map amendment number 2020-02 and waive the first reading.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Any discussion on that item?
Negative.
I see there's none. Got a motion by Mr. Plewart, second by Mr. Scoldy. Mr. Plewart?
Aye.
Mr. Scoldy?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
I vote aye.
I move ordinance 2020-06 or 06, approving plan unit development number 2020-01 and waive the first reading.
Can I get a motion?
Second.
There you go.
Got a motion by Mr. Plewart and the second by Mr. Lyons. Mr. Plewart?
Any discussion?
Discussion.
Any discussion? No discussion.
When he asked, is there any discussion, do we want to discuss what I made a motion on, or do you have any question about what I moved?
Oh, comprehend.
So,
Okay.
I vote aye.
Mr. Plewart voted aye. Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Scoldy?
Yes.
And I vote aye.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
And I move resolution 2020-20, approving tentative subdivision map 848 and major site plan review number 2020-01 in accordance with the findings and conditions in the resolution.
I got a motion by Mr. Plewart.
Sorry.
For clarification, did you want to also add the modifications that we mentioned tonight?
I'll amend my motion by adding as modified by those three conditions.
Got a motion by Mr. Plewart. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Scoldy. Mr. Plewart?
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Mr. Plewart?
Aye.
Mr. Scoldy?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
With respect to the Navy, but I still say aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
That brings us to new business.
Special.
Yeah, and I have a special meeting later.
Now I'm going to the special meeting.
Thank you for your comments tonight.
Right.
Do we have the letter from the Navy for our record?
Yes, the captain just gave it to the clerk.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
All right, thank you,
Have a
sir.
good night.
Thank you for everything you do.
Now I'm going to call item 5-1, new business, section 5.
Do we need to read it?
Discussion and directions.
Yeah, so it's the discussion and direction on the sales tax ballot measure for November 2020 election.
So
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We've gone back and forth on this one a little bit. At first, we were going to asked to run a sales tax initiative. Then with COVID and some of the executive order and the governor's repeal of taxes on those that can defer if they make less than 50 million a year, that impacts pretty much all but 6 businesses in the city of Lemoore. So it was like, well, if you even pass the sales tax, it could be deferred, but we're at a crossroads now. Assistant City Manager Spear is actually at home working on budgets as we speak. We're trying to get the latest and greatest to put together. But as we're finalizing budgets to bring at our next council meeting, it is very apparent that the ask from staff would be that we get a sales tax initiative out to our voters. So tonight I'm asking for how you would like that worded so we can bring it back for a vote at the next meeting, whether it be a special tax or a general tax. But The staff will be coming with a 1% or a 1 cent increase per 100.
So on this tax, is it going to be a fixed term tax or is it going to be a continual tax in eternity?
So that's what the discussion's about. You can put sunsets on these things and have a revote down the road. Anytime council, you can always lower it, if things get better down the road. And we're working on a few different things. We obviously know there's some cannabis coming to town. Those are done. They're public record. We're going to see some additional funding from the dispensaries, but that's not enough to shore the gap. After going through and looking at everything available to us, this is actually needed, and we'll have more data when we come back next week. But in order to maintain essential services and public safety, we need a sales tax.
Okay, I got just for clarification.
Okay.
A special tax would be for a specific thing, like public safety, whatever. Whereas a general tax, it goes right into our general fund and we can use it for whatever we need it for, correct?
Correct.
So could we word could we word anything that goes to the voter in such a way as to imply and actually factually imply that if we don't get an additional source of revenue for a general fund, that it will impact public safety, law enforcement, things like that?
Yes, so we could work on language so that it could be the general tax so that you have the 50+1 threshold instead of the 2/3 threshold.
Well, in other words, if we don't get a source of revenue for the general fund, the police department, the fire department, and every department in the city is going to be impacted with cuts.
Yes, so when it comes to the general fund, the accounts that drive that the most are fire, PD, public works. There is some cost recovery in public works. Parks and recreation, those are all your general fund
Where is
accounts.
the biggest piece of the pie?
In police department.
Yeah. So if there's reductions in service, if there's reductions because of not enough money to pay for all the police officers out of the general fund, there's going to be a reduction in service to the citizens. And certainly we don't want that.
That's a correct statement, and the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but right now Lemoore has basically 4 beats that are patrolled at night. The one beat is quite large. It should actually be an additional beat on its own. So now we
have 3. The South Beach
should be 4.
of this housing complex should be 4.
Okay, should be a 4th beat, and then with housing complexes coming on, the one we have tonight, that's additional up by the college. I mean, we still go out, the college is on a beat, but with resident, you're gonna have to be out there more often. And then with the proposed Lacey Ranch, that's all the way on the other end of town. Now that's still a couple years out, but the need for response and timely response is not going away by any means,
Well, it's what we need and what the public will provide are 2 different things. So what amount of revenue would be brought in by, say, a 1% sales tax increase?
If we hold true with what we're getting now, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.8 million to $2 million annually.
What is our total budget? Around 16?
Yeah, we're still developing it, but it's south of 14, between 13 and 14 million for the general fund.
Okay, so our general fund is going to have to supply everything that we need with $14 million, and how much do we have coming in? Less than that.
Yes.
Especially because of this crisis that we're in.
Yeah, so the city was already in some financial opportunities. We've been working through those. I mean, we were actually thinking we would have had some cannabis revenues halfway through last year. So we could have had a good firm base of what we could count on for this year. They are opening next week or in the next 2 weeks. So we'll get a little bit of revenue. So we're kind of conservatively approaching the budget. We do have every intent to come back after the November elections and do a mid-year adjustment, because then we'll have more data. Like I said, we already had some financial opportunities prior to COVID. COVID didn't help at all. So, and especially with what it did with fuel sales, fuel as a whole in this town is a big portion of our our sales tax. So with fuel prices in half and people being not traveling, that's going to impact us. So the immediate impact we can kind of gauge, it's going to be 6 figures to our take next year. We're anticipating less property tax as well, but for budget-wise, we're using the numbers the county is guesstimating. But there's a lot of unknowns yet with COVID. Right now we're building a budget assuming that we're going to be open for business, that before you know it, everything's going to be back to life as normal. Restaurants are open and people are out and about, but who knows? If things go south on the COVID, we're shut down again, that affects it. So it's a pretty fluid process this year, to say the least. But the numbers coming in preliminarily, and like I said, we'll have a very informative numbers and graphs up for you in 2 weeks. The need to increase revenues is critical, and we have some good things coming up on economic development. Some I can't talk about yet because the plans haven't been submitted. But even with those, it's not enough to cure that gap. So back to your point, Councilman Scaldi, is we can put a sunset if you'd like. You could, I think most of them go 7 years. I could be wrong. It could be 5, but this is something that could always be revisited. And hey, if something great happens and it turns out we're making more money than we need, then we could always back a tax off too.
Well, from
That's gonna
what,
Yeah, sure.
what we have to decide is, do we want to let the public make the decision on whether or not they want their services cut? Because that's what's going to happen if we don't have a sales tax increase or some sales tax revenue coming into the general fund. Services are going to get impacted. And if we don't allow them to cast that vote, and if they vote it down, that's their decision. But if we don't give them the opportunity to vote it down, then it's our fault. So I would go in the direction of a 1% general tax to sunset in 7 years. That's the direction I'd go.
Okay. So I appreciate that. I'll still look for more discussion, but I would like to point out that several years ago, there was a class and comp study done for Lemoore. And basically what it showed is we had significant positions within the city that were underfunded. At the time, we didn't have the means to basically correct those that were most impacted due to compaction. So previous councils they gave the city an 8% increase across the board several years ago. So during that conversation, there were conversations that this is not sustainable if a lot of things don't change, and in 3 to 5 years, we're looking at layoffs. The anticipation then was, the cart was before the horse. I'm not gonna say it wasn't, but we had every intent of running a sales tax initiative 2 years ago to help offset some of this, and it never got off this dais. It died for a lack of motion. So we never even got the opportunity to take it to the voter. I'm telling you, gentlemen, I'm pleading with you on this one. Let the voters decide on this one. It's got to get off this dais, and it's got to get out to this community. I'm begging you. And then I just need to know if you want us to bring it back for your vote, whether it's a general or a special. I'm with you. I like the general tax because it gives more flexibility. But if you look at historically, I think sometimes the specials pass more because it's more defined. But I know our attorney, I believe we can use a general with some kind of like an oversight or a spending plan attached to it with an accountability, or you you get a committee going on that, you have to report back how that spending's going. So we can have further discussions and we can take questions on that.
Yeah, so Measure K,
A couple years back, Measure K.
Measure K?
Lemoore passed it, although it didn't pass countywide, correct?
Right.
Yeah, Lemoore had, my memory serves, is approximately 68% in favor
Yes.
of Measure K.
Yeah, we passed it locally, but we fell short in some of the county areas.
So,
But that was a special one too.
but that was, yeah, it was
That was
for,
special.
I think that if people know that if you throw it in the general, it can go anywhere, and Joe Citizen doesn't care about anywhere, but I think every citizen cares about law enforcement and fire department and basically public safety. So if we made it a special one and the public knew that it was just for those departments, that we can't shore up, refuse or whatever it might be, even though they couldn't do it anyway. But
If it was a special and it passed, would that still shore the gap?
It'll get us a long ways. It'll get us very close. Now, that's today's numbers. The unknowns we don't know about, and the thing that scares me is like the unfunded liability on PERS. Typically, call it $1 million is like the city's take on unfunded liability annually. Well, for that to maintain, depends, how many people are retiring, how many people are in the workforce, but PERS has to maintain about a 7% return on investment to keep that payment. They're in the negatives after this COVID. So, we shored up this year. Actually, this year we shored up some gap, and even in developing the new budget this year, our ask is a little bit more than last year, but we've taken an additional 800 and something thousand in hits on fees and insurance and risk management that we have no control over and absorbed into our budget. So we're bare bones.
No
We're
offense.
kind of down to it. So what's that?
I said lawyer bills too, but I said no offense, Mr. Lerner, because
So I'm going to add something here.
way to open that up.
Under our contract, we were due for an increase July 1st. Our firm has foregone that increase for the city.
dodge that bullet.
And we do have some good partners. They've done that for us. Chriscom is, they were instrumental as I talked to some other cities in helping them pass sales taxes. They will remain on board and help us out to get the sales tax to at a rate that is very fair.
So
Do we need a decision today?
Well, I need to bring something back to you. You can give me specific direction or.
Special.
I don't think we need a motion. We're just discussing.
Correct, yeah, it's just going to be direction so that the city knows what to bring back to you at the next meeting. But before you make your decision, if you could open it up to the public
Once
as well.
again, I'm kind of leaning towards a general rather than a special.
Do you think a general would pass?
It's potentially. I mean, I think if people understand the need for it and it's worded properly and we lay out a solid plan,
Okay.
it could go either way.
Okay,
but-
let's say we went with a special and we got X number of dollars in. Does that leave the city open to rearrange the police department's budget to offset the money that they had coming in from the special tax? To use that money that would have gone to the police department to go to other departments in the city? Or
Yeah,
do
so
they-
we would, so the way it would work on the special taxes, law enforcement would always be made whole. Their budgets we would ensure that we're not impacting their service. So when the special tax, the money would go towards what we say the tax is for, firefighting, public safety, our PD. So, like this past budget cycle, we were $3.4 million in the deficit, right? So something like this, instead of cutting officers or cutting the amount of volunteers at the fire department, if we had this tax, it would go to make sure they stayed whole. The money, and that's how we're acting right now. If you look at the decisions I've made and my staff, the people that have been, we did have some layoffs in the city. We've had 6. And those were all, I don't want to say non-essential services because everybody feels as though they're essential, but they weren't public safety. I mean, those are your core values: sewer, water, trash, public safety, fire. It's nice to have a park that's groomed and landscaping done, but that's not essential. It's our job to make sure we keep providing essential services. The only impact we've had on the PD thus far is we instituted a hiring freeze 5-6 months ago. So we have had one officer leave to go to another agency, and we have not backfilled that position. So we're down an officer as we speak.
So could you bring us verbiage on both ways of doing it, on a special tax and on a general? That
Yes.
way you could bring forward the general verbiage what you're proposing, and and if we don't like it, we could default to the special.
Yeah, we can bring them both, absolutely.
Okay.
So consensus to bring back language.
Open it up to the
Oh,
public.
I'm sorry.
Open up to the public. Anybody want to expound on this?
Tom Reed, 1065 in Lemoore. I would tend to go with a general tax, and I do so for this reason. If you put a tax on that says it's special, that goes to the police department and the fire department, yeah, you can fund that. But if you use money that has previously been budgeted to the police and fire department for something else, that to me screams a bait and switch. And I don't think people are going to go for bait and switch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Thank you.
Mark Pescatore, I'm the president of the Lemoore Police Officer Association. Like Nathan mentioned earlier, 2 years ago, the association was ready. We were going to stand by. We were going to walk precincts. We were going to get the information out there for that sales tax, and it just fell flat. I got a phone call. I said, hey, it died on the dais, and don't worry about it. We're going to be fine. Fast forward to where we are now. Nathan said we're hurting. The men and women of my association pride themselves in the level of service that they provide to this community. And if we start cutting and we start losing those bodies, as hard as we're going to try and as hard as we work, that service level is going to go down. So I do implore you guys to move forward with the sales tax one way or the other, whatever's best for the city, but we do need to move forward, and we will be the boots on the ground to get that information out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
A former member of Lemoore City Council.
Can't remember that far back, frankly. Jay Salyer, 1040 Temple Court. If you do a tax, this is a community that doesn't like taxes. But if you do the right job of selling it, and not just selling it, but really establishing the need and having the community buy into that need, I don't think it'll be any trouble selling the sales tax. But I think what might make it easier and more palatable if there was a sunset on it. I think folks don't necessarily appreciate taxes where there's no end in sight. You could set up some conditions. If these conditions are met, then we would reevaluate the tax, or somewhere down the road, 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, 7 years, something that you could look forward to. And at that point, it would be reevaluated and probably go to another vote. But I think a tax, especially considering the circumstances the community's in right now, and a lot of communities around California, I think it's definitely doable, but it's going to take some effort. And I'll be glad to help out on that if you like. So thank you.
So you're volunteering to be on the ad hoc tax committee?
The anti-tax committee?
Ad hoc
tax committee?
Oh, okay.
I think I saw you raising
read
your
me
hand.
wrong there. Yeah, I'm the ad hoc tax committee or whatever.
Thank you so much.
He thought you said ham hock.
Well, I am hungry. I might have. Freudian slip.
As long
Anyone
as
else?
there's
No one else from the public? I see smiles. Okay, closing it, bringing it back to the council.
I think you got direction.
Yes.
I think we got direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll bring back 2 forms and we'll have a discussion next time.
Okay. Okay. Going down to brief city council reports? Okay. Now we're going to brief city council reports and requests. Mr. Lyons.
Yeah, I'm going to be brief. I just want to thank everybody for all the work that they continue to do, the police department, all the city people, and the guys across the street. I've got nothing to report. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Scody?
School's out.
School's not out. We still have a couple more days. Well, I'm glad to see that some restrictions lifted from COVID where people can actually start going back to what was once normal. I don't know how long it's going to take to get to actual what we envision as normal, but I'm glad that we're taking those baby steps and helping out our economy. I'd like to thank all those people. I was sitting a while back right when it came up, and I went to the post office, and this lady just had a box of masks, and she's like, "Here, you need a mask," and she started handing out stuff, and it was not just to me; it was to every single person. And you know, again, that's one thing that I love about this town is people care, and I'm glad that you guys showed up. I'm glad that this many people showed up tonight. It's been kind of a lonely couple last Tuesdays without some of our regulars in here. And it's nice to see some faces that I haven't seen in a while. So thank you guys for showing up. Please stay safe. COVID's not over. Some people think it is. It's not. Stay safe with you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pruitt.
I've got a special budget committee meeting for the South Fork Kings groundwater sustainability study on Thursday at 9:00, which I invited the city manager to participate in. It is a Zoom meeting. It's going to be talking about assessments for farmers, and it's going to affect the city as far as assessments go. And the assessments are probably $9.60 in right now, and we're trying to drop them. But right now, the city is taking care of out of the water fund for the assessment to the sustainability. This is one of the governor's, unfunded mandates, so we have to conform to it. I'm on the South Fork King Sustainability Agency, so I was selected by the rest to be on the budget committee, and I'm doing the best I can. I'm keeping my head just above water right now. So I'm hoping that the city manager will help out with the budget committee to make, at least interpret some of the numbers that I have to look at. So I hope you can be there at 9:00 on Thursday.
It's on my calendar.
And if you can't, well, I'll tread water.
I'll make it.
That's all I have.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Good seeing everybody back out here. It was a great, beautiful event that they had. Freedom School Elementary had the groundbreaking, seeing Mr. Pescatore, officer. He's also on the school board. They did a great speak on behalf of my related wife who passed away. I just want to thank all the support that I have gotten over the time, and I have nothing else to say, but God bless and everybody stay safe.